All right, 3DMJers. So very much like that one time that I was on the road just a few weeks back. What I ended up doing is giving you guys a brief overview of the training, how the summer fat loss phase is going. So I've kind of sold out to that idea. And then what I did is I went through a bunch of your questions that you guys had regarding just contest, non-contest prep fat loss phases. So the majority of people tuning into this channel are just recreational bodybuilders, and not necessarily people who are into or at this point in time competitive physique athletes. So I really think that based on the response last time, it was very appropriate to have just an open floor kind of setup, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. However, to make it a little bit different, to give you guys some airtime, what I would figure, and this was part of the deal, if I answered your question, it's because I went on Snapchat and I made that clear. Remember, I told you guys, send me your snaps, video snaps, ask me a question, and I will put you on blast on here, and then we will answer your question in as much detail as possible, which can be hard sometimes simply because I guess snaps are kind of one way, especially in this case, and they tend to be a bit more personal, the questions, and it's very hard to just have a full grasp of what's going on. Well, anyhow, before I just talk in circles here, let's get moving with these. So first question of the day, here it goes. This was the first person to get their question in.
Hey Alberto, I was wondering, about how many pounds would you recommend that somebody loses in a given fat loss?
All right, so about how many pounds, that's going to depend. I would say that most everyone who is looking at this channel is most likely trying to maximize their muscle gain. So what they will do is they will go through gaining and cutting phases, and I would say that the difference between the low end of your, and again this is just pretty general, the low end of your your cutting phase, like the very bottom of it, and then the very top of your gaining phase should be somewhere between 8 and 12%. That should be the difference. So again, to make it like very simple, let's just say this is really big bodybuilder, big natural bodybuilder, bottom end is 200 pounds. The top end for them would be somewhere between 208, 212. So again, they get to that top end and then they come back down, cut, rinse and repeat. And basically what you try to do within those two boundaries, if you will, especially once you're in that intermediate-ish phase, just try to make the top end and the low end look better every time. So yeah, I'd say the difference between the lowest of the lowest body weight for non-contest prep fat loss phases and the top end of your gaining phase, 8 to 12% is about right for most. Next question.
If fat loss is my main goal, along with keeping some of my muscle, would carb cycling work?
Okay, so when we hear the word carb cycling, what I think of is just having either refeed days within the week and undulating your caloric intake. And I think that is perhaps not on paper anyways, it doesn't seem like the most straightforward way to lose fat. However, I do think that in terms of first of all, securing that we get there makes adherence a whole lot better. It makes it a whole lot easier to know that I'm gonna grind through these 3 or 4 low days, and then I'll have a higher calorie, higher carb day. That makes it a lot easier for some people. I think having a high carb day there, just from that standpoint, it would be totally worth it. If all we really got was like the psychological benefits, but then again, it can make fat loss just a lot more predictable over the long run by keeping a lot of those fat loss hormones intact. So I think a lot of people who have dieted long enough, hard enough, know that we all kind of sort of do take a hormonal hit, and that can definitely help. But the big one to me is also performance. I think by having those higher calorie, higher carb days, what you will do is you will be able to, through what you eat on those higher calorie days, help power a lot of those training sessions on that day and after that day. So no, I definitely think that carb cycling is the way to go. Many ways of doing it. I definitely like to see people get at least 2 higher calorie days within a week's time. But yeah, no, I think carb cycling is it's very common now. There used to be a point in time where like fat loss diets were very linear, and I'm kind of glad to see that it hardly ever in my when athletes do come to me with fat loss phases, like the word high carb day, higher calorie day, or refeed day is not totally foreign to them. Okay, so this last question is one that so with snaps, if you miss them, you kind of miss them, and I thought I was recording this one twice. I wasn't, and it would just be unfair to not have this one up here because it's a really good question, and it's kind of about it's we're talking about a few things that are hardly ever mentioned when it comes to bodybuilding. Like I've never quite up until recently, like eating disorders was something that just honestly just was not talked about, and people who had them really assumed they were alone in this. And I guess the question was basically in a activity, a hobby, a sport, whatever you want to identify it as, where there's this cycle of gaining and cutting, gaining and cutting, and there's caloric restrictions every so often. How do I minimize my risk of developing an eating disorder, or perhaps just a relationship with food that wasn't really what you signed up for? And I'd be lying if I said that at some point I didn't have issues when it came to food, and at least for me, in my case, it wasn't necessarily because of caloric restrictions. It was because of rules that at one point in time were the truth. I think, namely, first one that comes to mind is the meal frequency thing. There was a point in time where if in a 7-day week, if there was a day where I missed one of my 6 meals, it kind of like made the week go to waste. And that was probably the closest I'd say that I ever got to quitting bodybuilding, was probably because of that. I just felt like it interfered with everything else in my life. Everything else that I wanted to is I would think to myself, how will I ever have a normal job and be able to fit 6 meals? Like, do I really want to live my life on the clock like that? So first of all, I think when adopting any kind of anything, whether it be training or eating, you have to ask yourself, can I make this a part of my life for not just the foreseeable future, but for a very, very, very long time? And I think had I just taken that approach back then, I think my own intuition would have carried me somewhere where perhaps I didn't have to stop bodybuilding. Maybe I could have done something that was perhaps less than optimal. However, it would have kept me doing some bodybuilding. So I think yeah, you have to think ahead. Think, is this sustainable? And then also, I think along with it being sustainable, I think you really have to enjoy what it is that you're doing. There was a point in time where just training up to a certain extent, I didn't necessarily enjoy. I think if it was more than 3 days a week, it would really just stress me out, because that was way too much time in the gym for me early on. I couldn't handle that. And it's something that we've tacked on over time. So what I would say is that only take on what you can. And if and this goes outside of the diet, if there are certain things that you just don't feel ready for, don't do it. Don't do it just yet. it can wait. I think so long as you're doing something that is progressive, that is fundamentally sound, I think that's where we start. So in regards to the whole fat loss phase thing, only take on what you can. If initially perhaps a pace where you're losing 5 pounds every 2 months is really all you can muster, that's perfectly okay. I think one thing that had you guys kind of scratching your heads is like, why are you coming out of the gates so fast or so assertively? And a lot of that is just because over time I've just learned to kind of I know what I can tolerate, and I knew that, hey, the first few weeks I could actually do quite well, get ahead. The next few weeks afterwards, I was going to have company and friends visit, and I knew that things wouldn't be exactly perfect. So I was being pliable, and I was kind of in a way making it part of my own life. So even that decision wasn't super bottom line orientated. So again, even in my case, when I make calls in regards to not just fat loss, but also gaining phases, and not just nutrition, but also my training, like I ask myself, is this sustainable? Can if I believe that this is what's going to have me moving at the fastest rate, are you sure that you can keep up with that? Can you keep that pace? And if not, there's nothing wrong at all with bringing down the pace a little bit and just never really getting off track. So again, I think quite a bit of when I look at Jeff Alberts, when I look at Brad Loomis, Andrea and Eric, and what they have done with their own bodybuilding, is that all of them in their own way, they have kind of learned to find a rate of travel, which changes all the time depending on what they're doing. So for example, right now Andrea's like super gung-ho into her training, and I think out of all of us, she's probably the one that is like most like closest to going at the fastest rate possible when it comes to being progressive with that. And then on the other side you have say Jeff, who is definitely in another point in his, not just his career, but bodybuilding career, but also in regards to his life, and he's okay with bringing it down a little bit, but he's still moving forward. So again, I think even the best do that. So commit to what you can, and I think a big part to making it look like you're perfect is just not falling off. So yeah, that is it. I'll leave it here. Next Q&A, what we will do on the 17th, okay? I want snaps on the 17th. Show me your face, ask me a question, have it be related to, we'll do one more of these when it comes to fat loss. And yeah, so if you're okay with having your face on the YouTube channel, go ahead and send me a snap. I'll put you on here. I'll answer your question. We'll do the first 7, okay? That's it for now. Thank you, guys.